Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And it is important, I think, to call out each of those groups to honor them. That's what this month is about. And just for a little bit of background on how this month came to be, the whole effort started back in 1977. It resulted in President Jimmy Carter designating a week in honor of Asian American Pacific Islanders. And then it culminated in 1992 when Congress finally got around to passing a law designating the entire month of May as Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. My next question was, how did May, out of 12 months out of the year, and we have overlapping holidays for all of the months, how did May get to be the special one? Well, it was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States, and that was on May 7th in 1843. May was also the month that marked the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. That was completed on May 10th in 1869. And as many of you know, the majority of that work was done by Chinese immigrants. So two reasons why May is an important month for our Asian Americans. In addition, I just want to add, we had Chinese laborers here in California working in the gold mine fields. They were a huge part of that industry and that early wealth in our state of California. But even more than that, these Chinese immigrants brought with them from their homeland skills and knowledge on farming. They took the Sacramento Delta, which had been a marshland, and they turned it into the fertile agricultural production zone that it is today. And not only that, but they brought with them a variety of fruits and vegetables that had never been grown in California before. Until then, we'd mostly been a grain state. And you could say that the abundance that we are so proud of today, that we enjoy today, can be traced back directly to those Chinese immigrants, again, who brought so much of their homeland with them when they came here. So that's a little background on this month and why it is so special to us in agriculture. I want to welcome to our panel today, David Fong, who is a senior environmental scientist with the Citrus Pest and Disease Prevention Division. Thanks for being with us, David. And Keith Okasaki, who is our environmental program manager at Citrus Pest and Disease Prevention Division as well. Thanks for being here, Keith.
Absolutely, happy to be here.
So let's dive in. I like to kind of just find out what brought you to CDFA in the first place. How long have you been working here? What's your role? What's your job? What do you do? What are you doing here? As I was joking with you earlier. I'll turn to you first, David.
Yeah, so my name is David Fong, and I work as a geospatial data scientist here at CDFA. Specifically, I work within the Citrus division in using data and science to support and inform statewide pest and disease detection, prevention, and eradication effort. I've been with CDFA for about 4.5 years now, and there were a couple reasons for why I joined CDFA. The first one was that it was an opportunity for me to utilize my technical skill and supervisory ability to be successful at my current job. And the second reason was that I grew up in Vietnam, and I witnessed a lot of food insecurity around me. So being able to work in a field where I can provide food security, not just for Californian, but for rest of the world, is very meaningful to me. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's really interesting. I can't imagine that you have a lot of stories around growing up in Vietnam. I won't force you to tell them all here, but what a wonderful thing that you took something that was a hardship and devoted your whole career to it. And we are the lucky ones that get to benefit. So thank you. I want to take a second and say hello to Michelle. Hello, Michelle fam. Welcome. Michelle is our environmental program manager at the Pierce's Disease Control Program. It's good to see you.
I apologize for being late.
No worries. We're casual here. Glad you're here.
Thank you.
So
Likewise.
the question that I'd asked is what do you do at CDFA and how long have you worked at CDFA? How did you come to be here? So I'll let you settle in, Michelle, and I'm going to ask Keith that question.
So I don't have as good of a story as David. This was my first real job out of college. I was looking for work, had a degree in environmental science, and I started with plant health and pest exclusion as an environmental scientist. Was there for 5 or 6 years, moved to the citrus division as a senior environmental scientist, now environmental program manager. And yesterday was actually my 10-year mark of working for CDFA.
Wow, happy anniversary.
Thank you. Yeah, I had that marked on the calendar. I was kind of excited for it.
Oh,
This has been a great place. So my roles with the citrus division, I'm the regulatory manager. So everything quarantine related, regulations related, when it comes to moving citrus commodities, whether that be fruit or nursery stock, to help prevent the artificial spread of ACP or Asian citrus psyllid, Walnut long bean disease, sweet orange scab, number of citrus pests and diseases. I manage the quarantines and regulations for that. And then for the last month and a half or so, I've been helping out with PDEP, filling in for one of their vacant positions.
so you haven't been busy at all this past year with 7 quarantines in the state of California, a historic number. And I want to thank you. I know how busy it's been for you and for all of our staff. It has been a tough year, and I hope you're all rested and ready for the year ahead, which won't be as bad as last year. But Keith, I do wonder, was there anything in your background that led you towards agriculture?
So my family on both sides, mother and father, were both Japanese immigrants. I'm 4th generation. They came over, and when they settled here, they were farmers. My wife's family are farmers as well. So kind of growing up around agriculture. My mom grew up on a fruit orchard in Placer County, and we still have that property. It's not farmed anymore, but we still have it. So growing up, I was always there, spent a lot of time picking fruit and just running around in the orchard. So just kind of always had that background, I guess.
Yeah, you just kind of absorbed it and then were drawn to CDFA subconsciously. Thank you. How about you, Michelle?
Oh gosh. I was doing some mental gymnastics in my head going like, how long have I been with CDFA? Well, I don't think I have a great story of why I started with CDFA. I think it's similar to Keith. I graduated from college in 2008. It was a great time to graduate because you couldn't get a job anywhere, and I couldn't even get a job at McDonald's. So, kind of just scrambling. I was going to the unemployment office every day, trying to find a job somewhere. And how I started with CDFA was I actually saw a posting on a bulletin board, if you can believe it. It was a posting, and it was from CAS, the agency that plant division uses to hire seasonals. And I looked at it, and it was for an office technician type job. And you had to submit your application like the next day or something, or like the day of. I can't remember. It's been years ago, but I scrambled together. I couldn't obviously mail it, or I guess I could have, but I didn't know if they were going to accept it because it's postmarked or not. But anyways, long story short, I dropped off my application in downtown that same day or the next day. I can't remember. Went through a couple interviews and actually landed a job with CDFA through CAS in December of 2008. And at that time, of course, when it rains, it pours, right? I actually got another job too. So I was like, how do I do this? I didn't know, which one was going to last. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do both jobs as long as I could. So I was working 2 jobs when I first started with CDFA.
Oh, wow.
I actually got hired on as perm. I think it was May of 2009. So yeah, it would be, I just passed my anniversary then. But yeah, so I started as an office, office technician type job, kind of worked my way up. Oh yeah, and I started with a light brown apple moth branch, which doesn't exist as a branch anymore, but it's a program. And, you know, I worked there for not too long, and then I moved on to border stations under pest exclusion branch. And, you know, it's kind of interesting because, you know, I started with CDFA just to get a job and make some money, right? I had student loans to pay, all of that stuff, right? I need to be a little bit more independent. My parents were like, why don't you have a job? You have a, you know, a college degree. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. Well, so, you know, I kind of took it just because I was like, it's better than nothing. But, you know, I grown to love this department, and that's the reason why I'm still here. And I think I'll probably be here for the rest of my career. I don't have any intentions of leaving, to be honest.
Oh, love to hear that. Knock on wood.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of interesting because I started in the admin route, went to the data research data analyst, back to admin, and then went into program work as an agricultural program supervisor, worked my way up from 1, 2, and 3, and then moved on to the environmental scientist series. And I was able to start the hemp program in California. And then now I am working for the Pierce's disease control program, where I basically manage a little bit of everything about that program, but mainly we're trying to slow the spread of glassy wing sharpshooters in California to protect the grapevine industry. Well, actually all grapes really, because all grapes would be impacted. So yeah, so long story short, I have a very strange career path, but I am here where I am. And I think, you know, I truly have learned, like I said, learned to love this department, love what I do, love the purpose and what services we provide to the public. And yeah, I don't think I would ever leave.
I love that story. What I love about that story is that you kind of you fell into the job, wasn't what you were looking for, but it was what you needed at the time. And you stayed with us, and opportunities kept coming your way, and you kept taking them and proving yourself and moving up, over, up. You've really had an interesting experience of a couple of different aspects of what we do here at CDFA.
Absolutely. And honestly, I couldn't even do it on my own because I needed, you know, basically people to mentor me and provide me with support and the opportunities. I actually, I think if I can count correctly, I've done 3 T&D assignments within my career. So
wow,
that's, you know, that's a testament
impressive
to the, you know, support I received in upper management. So,
well, you lead me to my next question, which is, growing up, who did you look up to and how did they influence your life and career? Who helped you out?
you know, honestly, I would have to start with my parents because, you know, they're the people who I basically see every day, right? And with my parents, I remember just going like, okay, so my dad, I'm sorry if I'm getting a little emotional, but I think when we were growing up, there was me and my brother and my parents. We grew up poor.
Okay.
But we managed with my dad at his peak was making like maybe $50,000 a year. But, you know, I didn't know the difference. Well, I knew how much they made because they made me do like their taxes, writing checks, paying bills. So I knew how much the electricity bill costs.
How did that fall on you?
Asian parents. I don't know how to
Oh, are you
explain
the
it.
oldest daughter?
No, I was actually the youngest. But my
Okay.
parents made sure that I knew what the cost of living was.
Yeah.
So I just going through college. I mean, I went to a great school. My parents helped me, thank you, pay for college, my apartment, all of that. And I thought, if I could make more than $50,000 a year, I made it in life. And I've exceeded that beyond my wildest dreams. And CDFA made that happen. So I'm always going to be, I guess, dedicated to CDFA for that.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. That was really touching. I have so many thoughts about that, so many strands I want to pull out and learn more about. Your parents must be really proud of you.
Yeah, it's, you know, they don't really understand what I do, but they know that I work for his state, I have a good job, that they know that I do something related to agriculture. So they're like, hey, we don't have to worry about Michelle.
Yeah,
And that's a great feeling to give to your parents.
yeah. And you're taking care of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. If my parents had asked me to do their taxes, it would not have turned out well for anyone. So hats off to you for rising to the occasion.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Okay. How about you, Keith? Who'd
I-
you look up to growing up and who influenced your life and your career?
Always having a lot of influences, but definitely my grandparents. One of my earliest memories of, and this is not the right reason to look up to my grandfather, but I remember I was like 5 and he put down a double Whopper, and I thought I was just so impressed with the size of the burger he ate. I was like, wow, I want to be like you. But so that's not the right reason, but just spending a lot of time with my grandparents and very family oriented, and just seeing how they carried themselves and uh, keeping in with like the Japanese American traditions and just how they carry themselves and the way that they respected others and just everyone they came into contact to was really um, it was a very gradual influence, which I appreciate later on, not necessarily appreciating it or knowing it at the time, but reflecting and going back over the years, really, really appreciate what they did and looked up to them and tried to model as much of my behavior as I can after them.
I'm curious, what are some of the traditions that they shared with you?
A lot of them revolve around food,
Yeah.
which there's
And you are a foodie, so.
and there's no food without agriculture, right?
Right.
But no, a lot of them revolve around food, and just food brings everybody together. Whether that's spending time going to the cemetery, multiple times a year and getting together with family afterwards to reflect. And there's just so many different I'm gonna blank on specific traditions, but yeah, there's
Well, how about a family dish? Is there a traditional family dish that makes you think of them or makes you think of home?
I like oyakodon, which is just it's it literally translates into parent-child bowl because it's chicken, egg over rice in a bowl. And I just, it's a very simple dish, but a lot of times we would have that eating with my grandparents. They had chicken, so we had eggs, and just hopefully it wasn't there. I know with my mom growing up there, they would take care of their own chickens, but I think when I was eating and enjoying, it was more store-bought on
There were the
that
chickens
end.
were the pets that laid
Yes.
the eggs, and then there was chicken from the grocery store.
Right. So I make that probably maybe once a month. Just I enjoy it. It's very simple. It brings back good memories.
It sounds like comfort food. Making
Definitely.
me hungry. How about you, David? Who'd you look up to? Who influenced your life and the work that you do?
Yeah, so my response will be very similar to Michelle's. It will be my parents, but especially my mom, who's a very independent, strong, and business-minded woman. So a little bit of a background about her. She was born in a quite well-off family in Vietnam, who has connection with the higher echelon folks in the South Vietnamese government, but that government was a little bit unstable, and there were quite a bit of regime changes, and during one of the regime change, her family pretty much lost everything, and especially after the North Vietnamese completed their conquest of South Vietnam. During that time, my wife's family, my mom's family, she lost, a lot of their affluent, and she had to drop out of school in 2nd grade and start working to support her family. But through all of that, she just kept, rising back up on her feet and At one point, she even went to prison because during that time, at the end of the war, a lot of people tried to escape and go overseas, and she ended up getting caught. So she was in prison for a while, but eventually they let her go, and her and my dad, was able to stood back up on their feet and actually was able to start a small business. And because of that small business, in light of the country Vietnam as a whole not being as affluent as here, us 4 kids actually had a somewhat comfortable life in Vietnam because of the small business that they had. But knowing that it's one thing for us to be comfortable now, us 4 kids wouldn't have as bright of a future in Vietnam if they had stayed there. So they decided to give up everything again and immigrate here to America. And, I came here when I was 12, along with my parents and my 3 siblings. And yeah, once they got here, they started over, took, a lot of different jobs in different places. My mom was a waitress, throughout all of her career here. And through their hard work and sacrifices, that's what motivated me to succeed, to work hard in school and be able to, get a career after school and live out the American dream and be able to support my own family now, as well as paying back to my parents. And I want to say, what we all talk about here today is actually very common sentiment among a lot of first generation immigrant, how we are all very grateful toward our parents, especially for all their hard work and sacrifices. Because in preparing for this panel discussion today, I had the privilege to talk to several of my colleagues in CDFA who are of Asian Pacific Islander descent. And, I'm just going to drop off some names here.
Mhm.
Pritika Pratap, with Citrus, Tracy May Ducas, the cousin was Citrus as well, and Chomin Lee and Lee Chung. They all have similar stories of how they are very grateful toward their parents and their sacrifices. And for them, it's about living and working hard and give back. So,
Yeah. What a wonderful legacy. And your mom must just be tough as nails to go through what she went through and then to uproot the whole family and move. To me, that just seems so terrifying. You have to believe in the American dream, but it's such an unknown. I just can't even imagine. And then coming to a new culture and starting over again. And I guess that's almost the good thing that she had started over again before in her life. Like we think about that, like, oh, that must have been so hard, but actually it made her very strong and it gave her an understanding of what it takes to start over again. Wow. You're pretty lucky to have her. She's lucky to have you. You're taking care of her now.
to whatever extent I can.
Yeah.
Well, to this day, she is still very independent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And still thinking of new ways to be able to start a new business.
Is she still doing businesses? What's her latest one?
Well, right now it's just mainly in the rental business.
Okay.
They eventually were able to save up enough to buy a house in San Jose, and they kept on making expansion to that little lot that they have and keep being able to rent it out to new people. So,
That's wonderful. Very savvy, especially in San Jose.
mhm.
Oh, that's great. And what was the business that she started back in Vietnam?
It's a clothing business,
Oh.
where they would make clothes and sell it to other retailers.
Oh, wow. So she's fashionable too, on top of all that.
Yeah,
Oh, well, tell her we said hello.
will do.
So my next question is, what are the aspects of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month that you think are the most important to honor, especially within the context of ag or the scientific fields that you all work in? And I'll go to you, Michelle.
Ooh, I mean, that's a little toughy, but I mean, I think the most important thing is just to celebrate everyone's achievements, right? that came before us. So that's how I see it, is that I couldn't be here without those people.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing to me, and I'll kind of keep it short for there. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you kind of have to just realize that you didn't, even as much as independent you are, as much as you done as far as the effort, there's always someone before you.
And do you stop and think about your place
Oh yeah,
in that
absolutely.
chain? Who are
That's-
you setting things up for
Well, I mean,
ahead?
in my whole career, I've always been someone who's open to helping others advance their careers, and informally, and then now formally, I've been involved with the Upward Mobility Program, just trying to mentor more people so that they see value in what we do and our department. So
Great plug for the Upward Mobility Program. If you have not participated, if you don't know about it, Justin, oh, all three of you have done it. Oh, perfect examples right here. Reach out to any one of these three for more information. Thank you for not just going through it, but also being a part, being a mentor, and helping bring up other employees here at CDFA. It's really great.
thank you.
How about you, Keith?
I do want to add before that, Michelle was the AGPA who did my hiring paperwork when I started with CDFA. So I will say I've personally benefited from her being in kind of an informal mentor. I've always gone to Michelle for different aspects, and
Oh,
different questions, and she's been always super helpful.
Yeah,
So I appreciate it.
You helped me remind me that I was supposed to be on this morning.
Michelle definitely knows a little bit of everything.
I got you. Well, once.
Yeah.
For me, I think a lot, especially in the older generations, a lot of the immigrants who came over were farmers, were in agriculture. They came over, like you guys said, to find a better life, to pursue the American dream. And we know, working with food and ag, that farming is tough. There's good years, but there's a lot of really tough years, a lot of thin years where it's to be a grower, it's persevering through a lot of years. So I think honoring the resiliency of our previous generations and those who came over is really important. I know, at least for Japanese Americans, like my great grandparents came over, they started farming. When World War II hit, they got scooped up and taken to internment camps for 3 or 4 years, and then having to come back and restart. They were fortunate having good relationships with their neighbors who watched their properties and took care of their basically their house and the orchards. But I know that wasn't the case for a lot of people. A lot of people came back to a lot of hostility, negativity, and they just they had to start over. So I think just really recognizing and remembering and honoring the efforts and resiliency that of the families in agriculture.
Yeah, really commemorating the difficult history that we have in the United States, but still all the good that still came out of that. It's really important. How about you, David? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think before I answer this question, I want to provide a little bit of context into my background. Although I was born in Vietnam, but ethnically Chinese, and I married my beautiful wife roughly 7 years ago, and through marrying her, I got adopted into the Chamorro family, which is the indigenous people of the island of Guam, a U.S. territory in Pacific, and I got adopted into the Japanese American Hawaiian family as well. So just keep that context in mind as as I try to answer this question. So I think the most important aspect of this month to honor would be celebrating cultural diversity and achievements. So although Asian Americans, we don't make up a large percentage of the farming community here in America, but a lot of what we grow here is heavily influenced by the work of Asian American influence of the past. And Christine, you mentioned quite a few of those things earlier, like Chinese building Continental Railroad, and that helps a lot with the food transport. But through my research for this panel, I learned a lot myself, and I learned that even the wine industry here in Napa and Sonoma, the Chinese has a high influence on that in building roads and stone bridges and rock walls and cellar. And this fact, this next fact I'm going to name essentially, I was quite surprised that between 1856 and 1869, Chinese workers planted the majority of the 3.2 million grapevine in Sonoma County.
Oh,
And in talking to my colleague, Rafni Bella at the Citrus Division, I learned about the great contribution that the Sikh community has on the almond and peach industry here in California. And yeah, and Rafni is of Punjabi Indian descent. And the second aspect that I think worth celebrating this month is celebrating one's culture. And through talking to my uncle and my father-in-law, who are of Chamorro culture, that fact they really emphasize that fact to me more. Because to them, they're very proud of their culture, and they would take every opportunity to celebrate it. In every single day, they would aim to get together as much as possible. And when they get together, they will make ethnic food, because the thing to them is that modernization brings a lot of good things, but if you're not careful, a lot of the unique and positive aspects of a culture can be lost. So they always take every opportunity to celebrate their culture and remind the young people of the uniqueness of the Chamorro culture. Yeah, and one unfortunate fact is that when I talked to my father-in-law recently, he told me that not that many young people know the Chamorro language anymore, and that's kind of sad to them.
is he teaching your son?
He is not,
Oh.
because even he doesn't quite know the
Oh,
language.
it's been lost that long.
Yeah.
And how about language at home? I'm curious, does your son speak Vietnamese, or is he picking up any other languages with you and your wife?
He can speak a few words of Vietnamese and Chinese.
Okay.
Yeah, but because of the fact that my wife and I, we just came from so different culture, it's a little bit hard for any one of us to teach a specific language to our kids, because we would have to be the only one that's teaching it,
Right.
and not getting help from the other person.
That's hard.
But we try our best to be able to pass down, as much of these cultures to my son as possible. And
what of your culture do you share with him? Are there any specific holidays, or again, like any special meals?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, we try to pass on a lot of the Chamorro culture to him through a lot of family gathering. Thing with the Chamorro culture is that we love to get together, and we try to have a family reunion at least once every other year, where 50-something people from all over US will get together at the same place. And we actually recently had an event in Vegas where they organized an Olympic event where every single activity is related to the island of Guam. And the winner of that Olympic get something called lattice stone. People don't quite know what it is, but apparently it's a stone that an ancient civilization on the island of Guam used as a foundation for their building.
Oh.
Yeah. And so yeah, through events like that, we try to pass down, part of our parents' heritage over to my son.
Oh, that's inspiring. How fun. So who has the lattice stone?
My father-in-law.
Ah.
To win.
Oh, that's really neat. Wonderful. I'm struck by one in my research too. I found, I can't remember all of the commodities, but there's like a list of commodities that were introduced into American agriculture from Asian immigrants. And the two that I can remember off the top of my head are asparagus, a California crop, and strawberries, a major California crop. But it's interesting to me that you have people from all over the world. They come and they'll look at the same beautiful, amazing landscape that is California, and they will see something different growing there, whether it's grapes or asparagus or strawberries, and just how much that has impacted California as a state from a $59 billion industry, because we had all these people from all over the world come and with their vision help turn this place into just an amazing agricultural productive state.
Yeah, I think a great example of that is if you ever go to a local, Asian supermarket, there are things that, I might know the Vietnamese name of it, but I can't tell you what it is in English or vice versa. But I think that's a great example of how vast, our agriculture is here in California. It's just looking at the restaurant, because or not the restaurants, the supermarket and the restaurants, but because most of those are locally grown, the herbs and things like that. Yeah.
And I've noticed that it's not just the ethnic grocery stores, but when you go to a mainstream grocery store, there's now a really hearty ethnic section that has all kinds of fruits and vegetables from different types of cuisines. And I'm always looking at them like, how do I cook that? They need to have little recipe cards next to them. That would be very helpful to people like me, particularly if they're simple recipes.
Yeah, I think just now we talked about contribution of Asian American to the agriculture industry in California. I guess this will be a good time for me to mention about Asian American contribution to agricultural, to the sugarcane industry in Hawaii as well.
That's right.
That's where my wife's grandma is from, and they're Japanese American, and they came over from Japan to Hawaii working on the sugarcane plantation. And one of them, my mother-in-law grandpa was a field worker, and her grandma was did laundry for the field worker.
Mhm.
So there's so when we celebrate this month, it's not just about celebrating the people that work on the field, but also celebrating the people that did a lot of the supporting role to make a lot of the field activities happen.
Yes, and those supporting roles are incredibly important. Absolutely. And we talk about that when we talk about agriculture and growing food and what that means in terms of supporting an entire community around it, whether it's the crop protection industry, whether it's the farm services industry, it's the schools to educate people's children. It's just agriculture is the background, and every single person who's a part of that, their role, every role is so important and critical. How about any closing thoughts? Any kind of personal feelings towards commemorating this month? How about you, Michelle? Michelle, you've got a thought. Keith, go.
I'll echo what David's saying, and what you were saying about the supporting roles being so important. And it is, with families that come over and are immigrant farmers, it really is a full family effort, and it's year round. It's, I had my grandmother over for dinner last night, and we were talking about some of her her background living on multiple orchards growing up and through her full adult life. And, it's the family's cooking 3 meals a day for the workers on site. It's sewing their own clothes. It's doing field work, the entire family, children, wives, multiple generations doing field work. And the thing I've always heard when talking to, not just Japanese American, but a lot of different cultures and people of different backgrounds is there was no complaining. They did the work. It was hard. They did the work. They didn't complain. They went to bed, woke up and did it the next day. And to me, it's amazing. And, their efforts and sacrifices really gave us the opportunities that we have and enjoy today.
That's the very definition of a work ethic, certainly grounded. You remind me, you're talking to us about your family and growing up in the orchards and the stone fruit. It puts me to mind of Mas Masamoto. Have you heard of him? He's a farmer,
Okay.
and he wrote a book called Epitaph for a Peach. If there is such a thing as a farmer laureate, I would say it's Mr. Masamoto. The book is really a meditation on growing, not just producing food, but living close to the land and having a relationship with the land, even from the weeds and the pests to, ultimately growing this beautiful, very special, amazing peach. And every time I have the book on my bookshelf, I'm like, oh, I've got to look for one of those special peaches. They're very rare, kind of a heritage variety. But thinking about the contributions of Asian Americans in California agriculture, I think of Mas because he's not just an amazing farmer, kind of a sustainable farmer, but he also just has a poet's heart and he's a great storyteller. He has lots of books out there, also about cultural identity. How about you, Michelle?
Well, I mean, I think Keith or David touched on this, that, food is a big, big part of Asian and Pacific Islander cultures. And I just think, when you think of farming, you think of like tending the land, tending the plant, caring for it, cultivating, allowing it to flourish, so to speak, right? And I think that's like, to me, it's reminiscence of like what our culture stands for, because it's always about, taking care of each other and, making sure that, we're putting ourselves in a better position than we were. And yeah, so I just think, when connecting it with agriculture, I think I do it myself on a smaller scale now, where I cook ethnic food for friends and family, even if they don't like it.
What do you cook, Michelle?
Oh, gosh.
What's your specialty?
So I mean, I'm Vietnamese, but I honestly probably cook more Thai and Korean food than Vietnamese food. But I'm learning to go back and cooking some home, like some basic home meals, and really enjoying that. But in order to do that, the ingredients you got to find, it's like almost like a scavenger hunt at times. And so, like I said, it's one of those things where I feel like agriculture does kind of, in a way, is an analogy of the underlying theme for Asian cultures, is that, you gotta invest time and grow something to be productive, right, so to speak. But I think what I think moving forward, I've been thinking about this, but really I think this panel talk kind of solidified it in my mind that as a CDFA employee, I realized that I need to be able to take a little bit of a bigger role, or just focusing a little bit more on how do we help Asian communities or Pacific Islander communities to understand that, that the regulations that we have in place is not to allow them to have those type of dishes that they want, those specialty dishes. It's, can they grow and those plants or the food in a way that protects California and the environment too. So I've been, in my past, I've done a lot of conversation with family. I'm like, you can't bring that from Vietnam. Don't pack it in the suitcase. You can't do that, So it's a lot of, realizing that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for outreach and education, especially in the communities. It's a little bit difficult for me. I mean, English is not my first language, but it's the only language I know now. So, but really looking at going like, how do we, in our roles, facilitate those type of conversations and have, do that outreach. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to spending the next 20 years trying to figure that out.
Yay, that
CDFA.
outreach and that education is so important. It's important in the native language.
Mhm.
And now you have me thinking, like, there are so many delicacies in other countries, different fruits and vegetables. What's the alternative to smuggling in? How do we make those channels legal and easy so that we can bring them in while still safeguarding our kind of native agriculture
Mhm.
here, and then bring into what we grow,
Yeah.
those imports.
Absolutely. I mean, I just went to, for Mother's Day, went to my aunt's house, and, you know, I came bearing a plant for her for Mother's Day. And in return, I got 2 plants that one was like a root that I've never even heard of. And it was the first time I tried it. And she's like, have a plant. So, there's a lot of gift giving of plants. And that might be, one of those places where we should look at how do we educate the public that, what you can and can't do, or what you should or shouldn't do, right?
Right.
It's
How do
not
we
always-
just start propagating here
Yeah.
and growing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I like that. There you go.
mhm.
How about you, David?
Yeah, I would say several years ago, answering this question about what does AAPI Heritage Month mean to me personally would have been really hard. Because growing up, I just don't think about it much, because for a lot of, for me and a lot of my immigrant friends, it was about working hard and chasing the American dream and try to assimilate as much as we can. And in a lot of way, celebrating or promoting our culture is either not useful, or it can bring unwanted attention. And a lot of time it wasn't advantageous for us to do that. So growing up, I didn't quite think about that much, but as as I work a little bit more and talk to more and more people, now that I'm older, I'm starting to understand the importance of this month to highlight Asian American heritage, and I see this month as a month to be thankful of the hard work and sacrifices of all the Asian American and Pacific Islander who had walked before me, who overcame a lot of the barriers and the discrimination and fought against that to make our society the way it is today. Although there's still a lot of work to be done, but I would say this nation is in a very enviable position. And I'm forever indebted to this nation. It allows me, my 3 siblings, and my parents to be able to immigrate here. Growing up, my parents were blue collar, so this nation provided medical assistance to all our kids growing up, and provided financial assistance for me to go to college. And especially especially in this nation, that's where I learn and get to know my personal Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and allow me to be able to share my faith openly. And I'm forever indebted to this nation and what we stand for here. So.
Thank you. That really helps remind me of what a special place this is, and that there is so much to be proud of and to be optimistic about. It's an election year. Sometimes we forget our roots and our heritage and all the good that this country has offered, and we can always continue perfecting it. And so grateful that each of you are playing a role in that, just through the work that you're doing here at CDFA, and I know outside of the workplace too. So thank you so much. Really appreciate this conversation with you all. Let's see if anybody has any questions.
Are there any questions from the audience for our panelists or online? don't see anything, but we have a couple of comments. So Judy says she's so glad she carved out time for this session. She's left inspired and reminded of how our wonderful AAPI community is. Thank you for your genuine stories and time. Shout out to CDFA for hosting and our heartfelt moderator.
Oh.
And then Felicia says, thank you to CDFA for hosting this, as well as to David, Keith, and Michelle. You are amazing and feel grateful to work in the same department as all of you. Julie asks, what do you grow in your own homes that really reminds you of your heritage? That's a good question.
That's a good question. Oh, I mean, I've always had plants at my house. It's actually, I mean, I have a whole wall of plants, but I think when it comes to like, cooking, Thai basil and mint is always a go-to of mine. But the plant that I just got from my aunt that I'm super excited is, I don't know what it's even, I know the Vietnamese term, but it's equivalent to an elephant ear plant, but it's edible.
The Vietnamese term.
Oh, don't put me on the spot.
And you knew it.
My aunt told me last night. Oh gosh. No, it's actually, it's not a root. It's actually it's a plant that it looks like a big elephant ear.
Oh,
And
okay.
you eat the stalk of it and you make a soup called ganjua, which is a Vietnamese. You probably know what it is, right? So do you know what that plant is called in Vietnamese? This is what happens. Yeah, this is what happens with first generation. You only know so many words, and then the rest of it's like, yeah. But but yeah, I constantly always have lemons, limes around, right? Kumquats are a big thing. I always have a plant ready to go, so I can just pull it off and eat it right away. Yes. Oh, good job.
Can you say it on the microphone so
Yeah.
they can hear it? Baka.
Well, Catherine, maybe you
Oh,
should
she
say
got
it.
it. You got it right, Catherine.
Yeah, that is right. Yeah. Baka. I think that's is that how you pronounce it, David? Baka.
I
Right?
think so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, Catherine.
Yay, mystery solved. How about you, David? Any plants at your house?
Not necessarily at my house, because we just have a few citrus trees here, and I don't remember seeing any citrus trees in Vietnam.
Mm.
But at my parents' house in San Jose, they do have a few dragon fruit trees. And I don't know if you guys have seen dragon fruit yet. They look really beautiful, red, and they taste amazing.
Oh, yum. I've seen them at the store.
And also easy to propagate.
Oh. Keith?
So we bought a new house last year, so I haven't planted. So I was supposed to plant the garden this year, didn't do it. So thanks for the reminder that my wife keeps reminding me that I haven't done it. So it's probably too late. But typically we have, each year we'll have Japanese eggplant, we'll have shishito peppers, we'll grow shiso, which is, I don't know the actual.
It's like
I-
basil.
Yeah, but it's like kind of more of a bitter Japanese basil. Yeah, I don't know what the actual word is, but so we'll grow different things because I like to cook, and having that, growing up with that, and then having it readily accessible is always, really look forward to that.
Yeah. Oh, that is inspiring. Wonderful. Any other questions, thoughts?
Catherine says, thanks to Google, she got it.
Oh, you didn't have to fess that up.
All right.
Well, one more time, just thank you to all of you. I'm so proud to work with you here at CDFA. Thanks for your time and your thoughtfulness in the conversation. Back to you, Justin.
Thanks, Christy. Well, again, just echoing thanks to all of our panelists for being here today and speaking about their culture and what AAPI Heritage Month means to them. Thank you to Christy for being our ever vigilant moderator for the last few sessions. We always appreciate you making time for these events because it's very important to us in the DEI Committee and Office of Civil Rights, but also to the whole department. So we very much appreciate that. So as we are wrapping up May, we're about halfway through the month. We have one more event at the end of the month for Mental Health Awareness Month. for Stop Stigma Sacramento is going to be here talking about mental health and mental wellness. As well, we will be planning another panel for Pride Month in June, so next month. So keep an eye out for announcements about that. So thank you, everybody, for being here, and we hope to see you at the next event. Have a great day.
I'm always hungry.